There is and is not evil, and it is you. At the beginning of life, as infants, as children, we depend upon the ecology, the fabric of life that has come forth after eons of time, from evolution of slime into lizards and the development of the reptilian brain, all the way until we are here today, some mixture of human animal and human being and spiritual being, coexisting in one body, an imperfect, an inefficient, an ignorant, a cruel, in many ways, existence. And yet existence, life, right? To exist is better than not to exist, and so life is a good thing. Being born into an imperfect home, into an imperfect culture, is good. Right? And so the child, the infant, automatically downloads what is, takes it into their body, learns the language of their of their cult, the habits of their cult, good and bad, the diet of their cult, right? Constructive, healthy, unhealthy. They take it in. Life is good. As we move into adolescence, we discover the unfairness, right? The boy is being treated differently than the girl. It's unjust, it's unfair. We discover the hypocrisy. The one with the power doesn't always do what they tell other people to do. We discover the cruelty, right? Where the one who is the most poor is asked to pay the highest interest rate on a loan and given the greatest penalties for being late. And the one who is rich and doesn't need any loan at all gets a fraction of the interest rate, and no penalties and no fees for the year are charged. Right? The imbalances, the asymmetry, the unfairness, the injustice of the world hits us traumatically, right? As we recognize the imperfections of the world. Right. And what happens, right? Some become slaves, right? Never rise up. But what does life need of us at this point? You could imagine, right, that the unconscious whole, that the ecology, that the one, right, which is too big to fathom, right? If the only word in the language is one, right, which if everything is one, that's all you need, right? You know, hello one, hello one, hello one. That's one, 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 right? That's the only word you need in a language before the one was split into duality. It was split into two. And the two polarities give rise to an infinite number of gradations in between, right? So now we have systems, systems of thought, systems of reality, right? But these systems are crude, right? Because the human mind is crude, right? We may have a very crude system of work-life balance. It's a crude system. Or we might have a system of my spirit, my body, my heart, my mind, right? But we refract the one into systems. And if you look at any system refracted in the whole, you see that it has points. And those points hurt when you interact with those points, there's pain. And that's what the adolescent discovers, is the pain, right? The asymmetry, the unfairness, the undeveloped, the unpolished nature of the culture, of the cult, of the status quo. And it's the job of every adolescent to do battle with the injustices, with the unfairnesses, with the cruelties, right? With the sharp points of what is, right? Because those points hurt the adolescent. And you can either be crushed by that and cowed for life, or you can do battle. And the job of the adolescent, right, is to refine the system, right? To do battle with the imperfections, with the parents, with the authority figures, to do battle. To make the system a little bit more well-rounded, right? But every adolescent loses the ultimate battle of creating a perfect world, right? Every adolescent gains a few feet if they fight hard enough, if they win, and it's the adolescent's job to win. But every adolescent loses the battle, or they win the battle, but they lose the war, is, I guess, another way to say that. Because, the boss was embezzling the funds, the money that was being donated was going to the nonprofit's children, right? The CFO of the nonprofit gave the gifts to their children, not to the people most in need, right? It was a betrayal, right? And that got righted, right? You brought in the newspaper, you wrote a letter to the editor, you did this, you fought that battle, and you made some headway. You made some headway. At the very least, you fought the battle. You spoke your piece. You took a stand for something bigger than yourself, for something greater. It is a transcendent stand. It's a transcendent stance to stand up against tyranny, against oppression, against unfairness, against corruption, against stupidity. The wrong, the sin of the imbalance, of the asymmetry. You can imagine these systems as wheels, right? And it's a perfect wheel when it's perfectly round and the center is here. It's a perfectly graceful wheel. But that's not how cults are. That's not how families are. That's not how individuals are. Individuals are systems that are quite rough, right? And you can make them a little smoother by refining the system. The more complex the system, the more symmetrical the system, the easier it is to drive, the less bumps there are. But there's always going to be sharp edges, right? Because human consciousness is not profound enough to encapsulate, to wake up, to become conscious of the magnificence of the sphere, of all that is. It's just too big, right? And so we create maps, we create systems, we create identities, patterns of energy, right? That are not perfect, right? They create pain, and the adolescent's job is to rebel, to fight the good fight. That's the job of every adolescent. And hopefully, your job is to win the battle, but lose the war, right? Every adolescent dreams, if only this, and this were done, then the more, the perfect world arrives, right? But it never goes that way, and it never will, right? What happens, right, is that you take a very bumpy ride, a square, and you make it 50% less bumpy. That's a good run. That's a good war, a good battle. If you can make the ride 50% less bumpy, 50% less corrupt than it was when you arrived, That's wonderful, right? So you do that by creating complexity, right? Nothing is as complex as the sphere, but if you add, these 4 new distinctions, right? So that the drive is going from this point to this point to this point to this point. That's a less bumpy ride than driving on a square, right? Every system has its asymmetries, has its imperfections, has its imbalances. So you have become an adult in the process of fighting the system. And the system is more refined, more symmetrical as a result of your fight. That's as it should be. That is good, right? So we go from the unconditional good of the infant, of the child, where life and existence is good, rather than no life and no existence, right? To the transcendent battle of the hero, of the adolescent, to go to war against cruelty, which is innate to every system. If you cannot see the cruelty of your parents, if you cannot see the cruelty of your church, if you cannot see the cruelty of your government, and you cannot see your own cruelty or your partner's cruelty, you have not grown up. You are still a child. There is cruelty in every system because every system is imperfect. Every system has sharp edges, and those sharp edges hurt. There's cruelty in every system. Your job is to wake up from the childlike state into the adolescent state, and then to mount a successful campaign to fight, right? To fight the authority figure that embodies the injustice, that holds the status quo in their domain. Now, having fought that battle successfully, right, it's worn you out, finally, after this and this and this, there's a little bit less homelessness in your city. It's fucked up that there's any, but you got the homelessness down 50%. You got the prejudice, right? The racism is now less overt. There's still racism, but it's behind closed doors, right? There's still chauvinism, but it's not popular to talk about it in public, right? So you've won the battle, right? You've won the battle. You're exhausted, as every generation is. And what? Your job is to become now an adult, right? Which means that you now accept again the new status quo on the other side of the battle. And you become a member, right? You can't be an adolescent fighting everything your entire life, right? The monetary system is corrupt. Okay, so what are you going to do without any money and no way of making it? Right? The job system, I don't want to work this and that, so what are you going to do without a job, right? I mean, you can stay in that state to a certain extent, right? But at some point, it's no longer helpful for evolution, right? Your job is to go from the innocence of a child, accepting what is, to fighting a few key battles to reduce the worst of what is, the worst of what is. And then it's to become a part of the slightly improved system that you help to create. Right? It's not, right? It's not to just sit and blow up, infrastructure for the rest of your life. Oh, that's not perfect. Blow that one up. That's not perfect. Protest that. It's not just to protest for the rest of your life. It's all imperfect. It always has been. It always will be. Right? You have to grow up again past, right, pass the battle with adolescence and get a job, the best that you can find within your principles, within this. You have to find a relationship, right? Right, that person's unconscious, that's unhealthy, yeah, that's all true, right? But you cease to be a part of life unless you form a relationship with somebody, however fucked up they are, however fucked up you are, right? You have to engage with life, right? So now you're part of the new status quo, right? With sharp edges, imperfections, injustices, etc. And it's the job of the next generation to fight you. You are now the evil, right? Right? Your parents beat you and shamed you and didn't give you an education. And you thought that was fucked up, and it was. Right? And you didn't beat your children, and you did give them an education, and you still shamed them. Right? So they have a new battle to fight. Right? Shaming them is fucked up, right? That's the way it's always been. You're now the status quo. Right? You're the evil one. And what you give to an infant is good. And what you don't do right is wrong to your adolescent. Right? You're now the evil. And it's good. It's good. And it's good when your adolescent wins and makes things a little better. That's the evolution of life. Right? It's good when the incumbent political party points out the flaws, the corruption, the stupidity, the laziness, the greed. Right? It's good that they win. Right? And it's good that they are in turn challenged. Right? So this is the cycle of life. The cycle of life is good. Right? So we go from the innocence of there is nothing bad, my parents, the world is perfect, I have to do what I'm told, the innocence of an infant, right, to the endurance of the child, into the hostile endurance of the adolescence, into breaking free, right, and that breaking free is not good unless it results in something better. Like if you leave your company with all of its stupidity, it's, the boss didn't know this, they're so dumb, they are. They didn't do this, that's dumb, your coworker, that wasn't your fault. No, it wasn't, right? So you leave your company, great. You're moving from the childlike thing of, thank goodness somebody gave me a job, to the adolescent, this is all fucked up, right? I could do it so much better. But your job is then to do it so much better. That's fine, so you left. Right? That's part of evolution, that's part of life, and it's good, provided you are able and willing to create a competitive company, which means that you have to be held to those high standards. And if you can do that, that's good. If you can't, if you go bankrupt, if you fail because you're too blind with revenge, with rage, with righteousness, that you're too blind to actually understand that your boss knew a few things that you didn't, right? If you only see their faults and don't learn from just the success of existence, the fact that they're there as a boss means they're doing some things right. But you've got to learn from that in order to truly iterate. But the best thing that can happen, right, is you leave, do things better, and your business grows and the old company declines. And the best employees come over to you and you take the vision of that technology, of that pattern to the next level until somebody does the same to you. that takes life forward. And the competitive process of continual innovation and improvement is good, right? So to the infant, there is no evil. To the adolescent, there is an evil, and there is a big quest. Are you willing to risk death to fight the evil, to right the wrong? And you have not succeeded until you're willing to fight, to risk life. Right? This is the transcendent act. Now, this act can take a covert path through revenge and weakness. Right? You won't fight because you're too cowardly to fight, but you plot to undermine the unfairness, right? You sabotage. That's the darker route, because it doesn't lead to innovation. What life needs is the good fight. It needs you to understand what's wrong with the status quo, number one, and to learn to make it better, number two. And for you to succeed, right? You need to succeed. You can't just take pot shots at the stupidity and cruelty of everyone else. That's a given. You need to succeed. You need to show a better way of doing it. And that's when you've become useful in life. You then need to embody the new throne. You are now the leader, right? Which means that people look to you for leadership, and in their childlike state, accept you as the perfect leader and all of that. As they get a little closer, your imperfections, your rough edges, don't talk to him about that on a Monday. He's terrible about that. If you looked at the way he says hire people equally, but look, he picks all the cute secretaries. That's not equal. This is bullshit, right? So as people get closer to you, they're going to see your rough edges, your imperfections. And what life wants, what life demands for any culture, for any species that continues to blossom and reach its potential, is it needs a courageous rebel, right? Lucifer, the courageous rebel, right? That said, this is fucked up. This is fucked up, right? What? This is all it is. It's messed up. A courageous rebel is required to speak about all of your stupidity, all of your blindness, to reveal the emperor has no clothes here either. It's better than it was before, but it's always fucked up in the eyes of the adolescent, and that's their job. Right? So you need a courageous rebel who will challenge you and win, right? Bring out more of the best in you. Right? That's the essence of compete, to bring out the best in the other, right? Damn it, I'm not going to let my employee win. So you have to get better. You have to get off your ass, right? And go off and try and ruin their reputation and do this. And, if they make a better product, right? And you can't just, righteously expect, no, this is a fight for survival of identity. And it's an ugly fight in many cases, right? But it is a measure of the best technology available, which includes the technology of fighting, right? Fighting clean and fighting bad. They're both part of that fight, right? If you won't play dirty at all, and you're in an ignorant, fear-based culture, you're probably not going to win, right? So can you really make things better, right? It's right. But life needs there to be a challenger, a hero, a heroine to go forth and to claim the throne in a way that is better than the past, not just appearing, but is better than the past. If you succeed, it's good. Right? Now, why is evil good? Right? There is no evil. There is evil. And it is you. Why is evil good? Well, for life to continue to evolve, to iterate, there has to be a point of friction. Nobody in a perfect idyllic childhood with perfect unconditional love all the time grows up. Right? The growing up is the recognition of the faults, the hypocrisy, etc. of the parents. So you don't grow up if there's perfect parents. You stay children. But how does life evolve? How do you grow? If you're not expanding, you're contracting. How do you grow in a state of perfection? You don't. The imperfections of your system are what you rebel against. What you rebel, the act of rebellion, is what takes you into adulthood. As an adult, right, you can embody a better part of the system, right? You can take the best of what was, but reject the worst of what was. You can form a new synthesis. Now, someone has to be in that leadership role because unconscious chaos is worse than conscious order. Unconscious chaos, no laws, no system, no language, no structure, nothing, just random. That's not an advanced evolutionary state. So there needs to be an order, and it needs to be conscious, and it needs to be maintained, right? You sweep the floor, and then dust comes in. You sweep the floor, and dust comes in. The order must be maintained. But all order has sharp edges, right? You take, this is a nice, comfortable shape, right? But if you refract this by 5, that's an order. What do you have? You have 5 sharp points. When those points make contact with you at certain angles, you realize it's wrong. It's bad. But it is not as wrong and as bad as having no system whatsoever. Right? There is a reason that human beings form cults, form cultures, however corrupt and wrong. Would rather have a gang than just chaos. There's a reason for that. And that is that a consciously maintained order is higher on the evolutionary chain than unconscious chaos. The order is necessary, and it has sharp edges, right? So the process of evolution is taking a sharp system that's asymmetrical and making it softer by adding more complexity to it, right? If you have a million needles pointing out at you, all with sharp edges, it doesn't hurt you as much as one needle, right? Because the pressure is divided. Right? So the more complex and the more symmetrical your system is, they're sharp edges. They're not right. They're not balanced. They're not fair. They're wrong in ways, but they're better than nothing. Which is why after you have refined the system and take your place in a leadership role or as a maintenance role, you're maintaining the system, it is good that you are there, even though it is corrupt, even though it is flawed, even though it is sharp, even though it's unfair. It's good that you're there, right? And your job is to hold that system and maintain it until an adolescent, a rebel, has enough competence to, 1, see the flaw in your system, 2, fight it and win, and 3, replace it with a better system. That's the criteria. If they just fight it and win and they're idiots and they don't know how to run a pizza oven, right? They look at this, we're going to protest this, this is pizza joint is not healthy. Right. Shut it down. Okay, fine. But do you know how to run a healthy pizza joint? I don't know how to show up to work on time. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to manage payroll. I don't want to work all that. I just wanted to point out the flaws in this corrupt system. Well, then you shouldn't shut down the old pizza joint, right? You've got to be ready to take a leadership role, and you've got to be honest that it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to fix all the problems, but you've got to maintain the new system until someone smarter, more motivated, etc., is able to take your place. And in a sociopathic environment, the leader is determined by who wins the battle. In an empathic environment, it's determined by objective measures of competency, and you don't have to fight over it. But you have to earn the competency recognition by saying, look, I have this, and this is my track record. And so I should be in the leadership role there. And if anyone is intelligent enough to put me there, the world will be a better place because I'm there. So there is no evil, right? Meaning any life is better than non-existence. If you go from, right? There is evil. There's unfairness, there's asymmetry, right? And the evil is good because without its friction, we don't create adults. Without anger, without frustration, without resentment, and I'm going to show them, you don't progress the world forward in that endless, continual iteration towards improvement. And it is you, right? If you're fortunate enough to win the battle and take over a leadership role, you will be a little better, maybe 50%, maybe 30%, maybe 100% better than where you took over, right? And it is the job of the next generation to fight you as the new representative of unfairness, injustice, cruelty, stupidity, and evil, which you are, because it's built into every system, right? The only system that's truly perfect is the one, is the whole, is the sphere. And it's unconscious, and we can't relate to it. It's too big. We can't see all the ways those wonderful things are all working together, right? And so we're creating and iterating dumb systems, simple systems, cruel systems, into slightly better systems, right? By adding, right, more and more complexity, taking one step forward and one step back, right? And that's our human journey. And that is good. It is good that humans exist rather than do not exist. They expand the possibility field exponentially in our universe over not existing at all.